views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Coming up, it's been a crisis in New York since 2008, and this year even worse than ever. The issue of homelessness. We go front and center with that on this edition of Perspectives with yours truly, Daren Jaime.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with shines of light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Perspectives. I am Daren Jaime. Well, with the increase in rent and other credible forces, a lot of people are still experiencing homelessness because there are a lot of challenges affecting people. People just struggling to make it and ending up out on the street. Our guest in the studio has over 18 years of serving families and children. She's the program director at BronxWorks, where she actually manages a number of the homeless prevention program. Here now to tell us a little bit more about what's going on with homelessness and the homeless prevention program is Miss Marie Edwards. She's the program director at BronxWorks. And Marie, thank you for sharing with us.
Welcome. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Listen, I want to talk about this a little bit because during this time of year, it's pretty bad outside, extremely cold, and you have to have a heart and mind for people who are really struggling nowadays. And for you, I know you're seeing more and more people. Give us a little bit, first and foremost, about what it's like this year, the homeless population, as compared to years past.
Well, in reference to the homeless population, I just think really in the Bronx alone, evictions are on the rise, regardless of the season. Necessarily, with the population at large in the Bronx, many of them are faced with eviction in Bronx Housing Court, more so than any other county. And we're experiencing a higher fluctuation than we've seen in the last 5 years or so. And particularly with seniors. And with the senior population in itself, it's a population that's also growing here in the Bronx. And it's going to continue to grow. In the next 15 years, the senior population is going to explode. And many of those seniors are not people who necessarily ask for help or seek out resources. So many times they find themselves really on their own, trying to resolve a housing crisis. They're living on a fixed income. They don't know where to turn. Housing court in itself is very complex for them and overwhelming. So many times those seniors, they don't know what to do. And, the Bronx is like maybe the most affordable place they can live, and they fell into a crisis and they don't know what to do or where to turn. So many of them are finding themselves at risk of eviction, but you won't necessarily find all seniors in a homeless shelter. They don't want to go to a shelter necessarily. They'll try to maybe turn to friends or family or anyone if they choose to, but most times they try to navigate or do things on their own.
Between the year 2008 and 2013, Bronx evictions accounted for about 35%, almost 36% of all of New York City. The Bronx, 36% of all of New York City. Is there any particular reason why we're seeing such high numbers here in our borough?
The Bronx in itself is probably the most affordable borough, but has a greater population of the poorest residents. And you have those that are on very tight incomes. And with that income, they fall into any crisis. They find themselves unable to catch up with the rent that they owe. And so they will find themselves in housing court. So again, it's the most affordable borough, but the poverty rate is high also.
And the astronomical amount of 60 years of age or older people who are actually going and facing eviction. I mean, it's almost unheard of to be in your 60s and seeing in our borough a lot of people at that age who should be at a place of being settled or ready for pursuing retirement.
Right. Retirement.
Right. And yet still having to deal with the issue of homelessness.
They do. It's unfortunate. Some of it, unfortunately, stems from the lack of financial education prior to retirement. So many of them are retiring and they may not necessarily have a pension. They're retiring on Social Security income versus having a pension and Social Security retirement benefits. So that poses for a problem. But, you know, it is unfortunate. And you do have the group of seniors who actually have decent income, but financial struggles of their own, whether it's they're faced with a death in their family. Many of them are losing siblings, losing relatives. They're contributing to funeral expenses. Other things come up that require, you know, monetary involvement, and they're faced with that crisis. And many times it's hard for them to turn and really ask for help in regards to that.
And you guys provide extreme help at BronxWorks dealing with this whole issue of homelessness. Let's walk through a little bit of the services that you guys provide for someone who walks through the door. If I walk through the door and say, you know what, this is what I'm dealing with, don't have anywhere to go, about to lose where I am, what do you tell me?
It depends, because BronxWorks is a multi-service agency, so we have a multitude of different homelessness prevention programs. So the first face that that person will see is the front desk staff, and they are trained to understand the variety of services at BronxWorks and the criteria for those services, and so they'd be able to direct that person to the appropriate program that fits the needs of that individual or family.
And some of the programs that you have are?
Some of the programs that we have, first and foremost, our Seniors Homelessness Prevention Program for seniors 60 and over, which is a program actually conceptualized by BronxWorks. So this was not something brought to our attention by any city, state, or federal agency. Second of all, we have our Emergency Needs for Our Homeless program, which meets certain guidelines for families with minor children in the household, and by minor we mean 18 years of age, under the age of 18. We also have our home-based program. We cover community districts 1 and 4. We also have our family eviction prevention supplement program. So that works also with families that are on public assistance that are at risk of eviction, also in Bronx Housing Court. And then we have our walk-in offices for housing assistance services. And then we also have, at our Morris Innovative Center, we also have a housing assistance program there as well.
I want to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue to talk more with Marie about some of the programs at BronxWorks and really how can we help to address this issue of homelessness in our borough, evictions in our borough. What can we do to make things a little bit better? We'll talk about that right after this.
Body language can tell you all sorts of things. Like someone is having a stroke. Know the sudden signs. Learn fast. Face drooping, arm weakness, speech difficulty. Time to call 911 and get them to a hospital immediately. Learn the body language and spot a stroke fast.
If you drive buzzed, it could cost you around $10,000. You'll face major legal fees, major fines, and steep insurance penalties. You could lose everything. Buzzed, busted, and broke. Because buzz driving is drunk driving.
Well, the Council for Senior Center and Services of New York City, better known as CSCS, will host its 26th annual Conference on Aging on Monday, January 20th at the Marriott Marquis, and that's 1535 Broadway between West 45th and 46th Street, focusing on the transformation of aging. The CSCS will present workshops on various topics of interest to those in aging services and those serving older adults. BronxWorks is one of 12 selected agencies taking part in the sessions, where they'll have the opportunity to speak about their innovative programs serving seniors today. And Marie Edwards is here with us. She's the program director of BronxWorks. And as we talk a little bit about seniors, and we read that, we're also participating a little bit with the Polar Bear Plunge and trying to raise an awareness as to what is going on in regards to homelessness and seniors. And I want to spend a few seconds talking about that population, that senior population, because not many of them know all of the services that are really out there.
They don't. We find just with the Seniors Homelessness Prevention Project in itself that when we screen many of the seniors, they're not aware of a lot of the entitlements that are out there for them that they're entitled to apply for. So, for example, senior citizens rent increase exemption, disability rent increase exemption. There are some who know, and there are many who do not know. And then we find ourselves having to refer them to one of our other office sites to apply for that benefit. It's something that they're entitled to, and they're unaware that they're entitled to this benefit. We also find out that they're not aware they might be entitled to food stamps, that there are other benefits out there. There's other resources that are out there that are specifically even at BronxWorks. Most times we don't have to refer out because we're a very large multi-service agency, so we have like 30 office locations, so there has to be some resource that we have available that they're eligible to apply for, most of which are available through our walk-in offices. So many times we find ourselves not only having to help them prevent their eviction, we have to help them apply for these resources as well, which will enable them to kind of defer costs in terms of what they're spending towards rent.
When you talk about resources and access to resources, obviously you guys have done a great job of being able to service seniors, service the homeless population, and really try to bridge a gap that really is widening across the city. But we all know about the economic challenges of the city and the state, the lack of resources, the cutting of the budget, the state budget, the city budget. How impacted have you guys been through these recent cuts and the cuts that are going on?
Speaking from my perspective, representing the agency, I think we have been impacted. I've been there for a long time. I've been through it all. I've seen programs become non-existent. I've seen programs shrinking down to, a smaller capacity than what we're accustomed to. It runs the gamut. But I think because of the size of the agency, because of our diversification in terms of the different programs that we have, we've been able to survive.
When you talked about the homeless prevention program, it actually helps seniors to avoid the whole process of really eviction and even ended up in housing court. Did it even strike you as like crazy to see the amount of seniors that you got headed towards housing court?
I think for us, that just so you understand, the program in itself that we have here is not even a year old. And this is actually a second implementation. First time this was tested as a pilot just to see if there was a demand if there would be a demand for the program, and it was astronomical numbers. And this was about 3 or 4 years ago, 4 years now. Program is brought back in April of last year, so we haven't made a year yet, and within that time frame we have seen close to 600 seniors in need of eviction prevention services. Yes, 600. So as opposed to the numbers going down, the numbers have gone up. So it's almost like a trifold at this point in terms of what we'd seen initially versus what we're seeing now.
You guys have an annual conference that you do, and I want you to give a little bit about your annual conference and what exactly occurs there.
At our agency?
Yeah, there's the Council of Senior Centers and...
Oh, in terms of the Council of Seniors, and yes. Just for the fact that, we do have a lot of different senior services. We are a member with that organization, and so we think it's very important as a whole to participate in the various activities that they offer, informational sessions that they offer, and really express the importance of really making sure that seniors are seen as a resource and not as a burden. And really in itself, they have taken a very aggressive action in regards to wanting to see that seniors' needs are being met here in New York City, not just only in the Bronx. And one of the things that we've done is we were selected to participate in a poster session on January 20th, as you mentioned earlier. And what that will entail really is us addressing this as an innovative program that we're taking on here at BronxWorks, but we'd also like to see replicated in other counties in New York City.
In December, you guys had a conference as well, and you held your first senior housing forum.
Yes.
Very well attended, I heard.
Very well attended. Very well attended. It was, you know, considering the time, we were kind of scared that seniors going to come out, and during that time, they actually came out because they felt this forum, which many had said they'd never even attended a senior housing forum, was very important to them. And once they heard about it, word just spread, and basically we had a packed house. It was very informative. We had available to the seniors the resources that we have available at BronxWorks. We also invited community partners to talk about the senior-related services they have at their agencies. So there was a lot of tabling that was available to them. We invited Deputy Borough President Aurelia Green was in attendance. We had State Assembly Member Suplaveda, he was in attendance. So we invited a number of different politicians and a lot of the community board members to attend the housing forum, and many were in attendance.
And citywide numbers are continuing to increase with the homeless population, and not just seniors. Seniors, of course, we talked about majority of the time, and the numbers rising. Do we see probably a little leveling off, or do you predict things will probably be worse before it gets better?
From my position, I think things are going to get worse before they get better. Unless there are more affordable housing, adequate housing for seniors, as well as low-income families and individuals, it's going to only get worse.
Is this a conversation that's being had with elected officials and government, and you guys really coming together with other community-based organizations to really try and say, listen, we got to do something here?
We've talked to some other community-based organizations, but it's important that we get our elected officials involved. And it can't necessarily be something that's heard just by us as a community-based organization. It also has to come from the community residents as well. They have to make it known that this is important to them as well, and not something that we're simply going after, but something in which we believe is a community concern, not just a community-based organization's concern.
Coming up in the future, what do you have planned as far as trying to address the winners here? And people are out there saying, listen, I mean, I probably got people watching right now who are on the verge, close to eviction. What can you tell them?
What can I tell them? I would say basically, you know, start going to many of your community-based organizations, speak up with your politicians, go to your elected officials' office, speak about, you know, the issues that you're having in your community, make them aware. They don't know unless you tell them. Sometimes they do know, but it's important to let them know that it's important to you, and it's important to your community as a whole. And it's important that the services that you're in need of are representative in your community. So that's an important factor.
Now, if you want more information about BronxWorks, we encourage you to get the information that was put at the bottom of your screen. There you can be able to tap into Marie and also many of the various programs that are going on. And as you said, there's a multiplicity of them across not just the Bronx, but across the city.
Across the city, yes.
And so we want you to do that, and want you to stay tuned. We'll be right back with more perspectives. Going to take a quick break and be right back right after this.
Don't look at me. Your hair's a bit frizzy today. Oh, you should pick that up. Oh, you're such a dork. Loser. Here, let me help you with that. Oops.
Every day, kids witness bullying.
Oh, look. Your crush is looking at you. Poor you.
They want to help, but don't know how.
See, no one here's gonna help you, because no one
Teach your
likes you.
kids how to be more than a bystander. Visit stopbullying.gov.
There's a shelter pet who wants to meet you. Meet one today. Visit theshelterpetproject.org. Adopt.
Barry, time is running out. According to my calculations, 1 in 5 kids in America struggles with hunger. How can so many children face hunger when there's more than enough food to feed them all?
Babadoo!
You're right, Barry. We can help solve hunger by teaming up with Feeding America to get food to hungry kids in communities across the country.
Help Flint and the Feeding America network of food banks get food to the people who need it in your community. Find your local Feeding America food bank at feedingamerica.org/hunger.
Together, we're Feeding America.
Today, 1 out of every 4 American kids is Hispanic. That means many of the future doctors who will care for us, the engineers who will build our cities, the scientists and entrepreneurs of our country can be your kids. We all know how hard it is for you to send them to college. This is why we want you to know you are not alone. And every day, more people support you to make it happen. Many support you. And the Hispanic Scholarship Fund helps you prepare, plan, and pay for your kids' college education. Learn more at hsf.net.
Back here on Perspective, talking about the issue of homelessness as it affects New York City residents, particularly right here in the borough of the Bronx. And want to let you know exactly how bad it is. Bronx evictions, as we say, accounted for almost 35% of all New York City evictions in 2008. These are pretty recent statistics, rising up to more than 35.4%. 5 years later, in 2014, a study was done by Kenneth Cole Fellows of Columbia University noted that seniors, particularly Bronx seniors, felt overwhelmed, underserved, overlooked when it comes to the issue of the eviction process. And speak a little bit about that, because somebody's out there watching and they're on the borderline and they could be having to deal with this, if not in a matter of time. And there is a feeling of like being overwhelmed, because many people, this is the first time it's ever happened. Never been evicted in all my life, and now to go through it. And there's a certain sense of pride that comes with it, because I don't want to tell anybody what's going on. So let's walk people through some of the things not to do to make the process a little bit better.
Not to do, don't hold it in. Speak to someone. You'd be surprised what someone else may know or know of someone in regards to resources. Just a perfect example, I think one senior that was in housing court that was referred to our program. Generally, our referral process is through the housing court. And his situation was he was actually homeless. He didn't tell anyone he was homeless. It's just in conversation with someone who he trusted, who then shared that with the director of the facility, who in turn contacted me. And then now I have him back home in his apartment. He and his wife are both sound, stable. And he was very grateful. He said, you know, if I didn't say anything, I would not have known anything. And thank you for helping me. And it's not that we expect that, but he was grateful for the fact that he took the opportunity to even speak up and share that information with another senior who brought it to the attention of my colleague at the facility. Because
admittedly, a lot of people, that's the last thing you want to tell somebody.
It is the last thing. And it may have been an embarrassing thing. At the time in which he mentioned it to that senior, it probably was about a month and a half, 2 months later since his eviction. So we were just concerned, was his apartment even available? And it actually was.
If someone has eviction papers, per se, you haven't got there yet, but the papers are, you know, out there. If you don't, within a certain amount of time, we'll evict you. People already assume that that's the end, but that's not necessarily the end.
That's not the end. And I mean, if we're speaking about the demand notice that they get from their landlord, that's just the notification that if you fail to pay what they claim you owe, then we will proceed to take you to court for non-payment of rent. So time to time we do have people who walk into our community center locations or one of our walk-in offices, and they would bring that documentation with them into the office, and then they're advised on what they need to do, what will be the next steps in regards to that matter. And then they're knowledgeable about what the next steps are, and they don't feel overly stressed as much And they feel a little bit more empowered to have that knowledge of information available to them, so they know that if and when the landlord decides to take them to court, they know what the next step is because we've advised them on what they need to do. And on most accounts, I'd say over 90% of the time, that means coming back to our office for help.
For people who don't know about your office and where your office is located?
We have 30 office locations, so to name them all would be almost impossible. But in terms of where I'm located at our community center location, which is the Carolyn McLaughlin Community Center, located at 1130 Grand Concourse. We have different walk-in office sites. We have our Avenue of St. John's office. We have our 2070 Grand Concourse office near East Tremont Avenue. We have our Townsend Avenue office. I mean, the list goes on. It would be best that someone goes to our website if they have internet accessibility at BronxWorks.org, or call one of our sites if they don't have computer access or internet access by calling the number, which I think is on your screen, and then we'd be more than happy to provide them with the information and address information for that location that provides or meets the needs that they're asking for.
So as you heard throughout the course of this show, we're trying to provide you the much needed resources, or at least help you to get a little navigation map, so that way you can be able to deal with the issue of homelessness, eviction. This seriously is affecting Bronxites and particularly seniors. And as we said, the numbers of people who are really being adversely affected, seniors, at an astronomical rate. The numbers continue to rise. And from Marie's perspective, really from a journalist perspective, it does look like it will probably be worse before it gets better. But the thing that you want to be able to do is tap into some of the resources. And so if you can go to the information that's been listed at the bottom of the screen, we'll try to throw it up at least one more time. There it is right there, that you can be able to check it out at the bottom of the screen and get the information to get involved in the process. Once again, don't wait until the process is over. If you're in the middle of it, if you're just beginning it, or you just got some questions about it and you feel like you're headed that direction, there's some resources that are available through BronxWorks to be able to help you out. And so, Marie, I want to thank you so much for coming and sharing with us and providing some helpful information, and hopefully we can, do something to help these people out here who are really struggling.
Well, one of the things that can be done is for everyone to really speak to their politicians and let them know, again, the importance of these programs and how it really cost-effectively helps many of those that we serve.
Mm-hmm. So you hear it, get to your politicians and let them know that services are needed, and the services that are provided are services that cannot be cut. That about wraps it up for us here on this edition of Perspectives. I'm Daren Jaime, thanking Marie one more time for joining us, and also thanking you, the viewer, for tuning in. Until next time we meet, stay safe, share your perspective with somebody else. It just might make a difference in someone else's life. Take care, and God bless.
What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
Express what's on your mind. What's on your mind?
Let 'em know.
What's on your mind? What's on your mind? What's on
Let 'em know.
your mind? What's on your
Let 'em
mind?
know.
What's on your mind?
Anything relevant to life, you bring it to the table. Whether you make a move solo or a movement with a stable. No fables, you speak on your decisions. Cause in the long run, it's your voice, your views, your vision. Keeping it real with many messages for you to know. This ain't radio, but DJ runs the show. Entertainment, he rocks it. Politics, he locks it. The host with the most would handle any topic. Don't forget to share your perspective with Shines of Light. Cause it might make a difference in someone else's life.
Make a difference.
What's your perspective?
Express what's in your heart and your mind. Share your perspective.
I got the job.
You've got the job. Welcome aboard.
I've got a job to do today.
Have a good first day at work, Mom.
Donate to Goodwill. Help provide job training in